Welcome to a live special CK podcast here on the Basketball Zone YouTube channel. I'm your host, Leo Bias, and we got Ty coming back, man. I mean, you've been off for so long, man. I know you're doing a lot of big things with school at UC Davis, but hey, man, we just saw the Kings go through one of the most, predictable but unpredictable drafts, right? Because we expected a lot, we didn't get it, and then Monte McNair hasn't been the best at free agency, so we'll see what happens this time. We'll break it all down, give you guys all of the realistic and unrealistic choices in free agency this year. But first and foremost, man, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me back, Leo. And, shout out to the UC Davis Aggies, but it's UC Berkeley. You're all good, Leo.
Big
but
facts,
yeah, I think
man.
this
Big
offseason,
facts.
We definitely have a lot ahead of ourselves. I think that the NBA draft was definitely disappointing considering all the NBA rumors that we had going on. But I think, this video will dive into some realistic options. But I think if we're being realistic, once again, this isn't the best free agency class.
And I apologize for my raspy voice, kind of short of breath, and my headache. I mean, these are all symptoms of most Kings fans, but I do have COVID. I think today might be my last day of COVID. And, I just thank God that it wasn't worse than what it was. I got it, last week. So hopefully it ends soon, man, so I can get my voice back. And so if I'm stuttering, not being my very best, my very finest, you know why, man. So I'm still on this COVID train. But yes, Ty. Let's go over probably the most unrealistic option for the Kings, which is Miles Bridges. He's been connected to the Pistons over the Kings, right? Which is crazy. He's been connected to the Pacers, right? Which is insane as well. And obviously his team, Mitch Kupchak, talked about bringing them back. He sounded pretty comfortable and pretty confident that they would create enough space. So do you think he's realistic or unrealistic, and how great of a fit or not great of a fit would Miles Bridges be on this team?
I think the big question you have to ask here is what's Miles Bridges' true value? And I think that especially with the market now, he's kind of demanding the max. In my opinion, I don't think that he's really a guy that's going to move a needle for a team. I think when I see the numbers this past year, a lot of it does have to go towards LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo Ball definitely elevated his game. I think in terms of realistic option for the Sacramento Kings, I think it's always nice to add another wing, but at the same time, I do feel like Miles Bridges is very limited in what he's able to do, right? He gets downhill, able to dunk the ball, but in terms of being a two-way player, sometimes we've seen him not necessarily be the most committed defensive player out there. And once again, I think that the two realistic places for him are going to be Charlotte or even Detroit, right? His hometown of Michigan. But kind of in relation to the Kings, I think that we're really in a tough spot here because I think Harrison Barnes is our only realistic option, and right. I think that Miles Bridges is just another wing that you can kind of fill in. But I don't know if I'd love giving him the money here in Sacramento just because what does a Miles Bridges plus De'Aaron Fox plus Sabonis really mean for the Kings, right? I mean, maybe an 8th seed. He doesn't really move the needle. But I do think that he's definitely going to get the money somewhere, and if it's not Charlotte, he's definitely on his way to Detroit.
That's interesting that you say he won't move the needle, and it's a good perspective to have because when we think about guys like Miles Bridges and guys like John Collins, both young, right? Stretch fours, I still think Miles is a better player than John Collins. But John
Absolutely.
Collins got the bag. I mean, he's getting paid, $25 million per season? So, and that's a player that's been connected to the Kings a lot. So when I think about these types of perspectives or outlooks, it's how far, right, can a trio of Sabonis, Fox, and either Collins or Miles Bridges get you to? And that's a fair question to ask because you're going to have to pay a lot of money to see that. One, because Sabonis is going to get the extension next season, right?
Yeah.
Fox just got paid. And whoever, if they get Collins, that's $100 million right there, 125, I think. And then this guy's going to get, he's demanding $30 million at least, which is pretty ludicrous, but it just tells you, as you said, where the market is in terms of free agents. And, man, it just makes me laugh because, again, how good is that trio? They do have a lot of upside, though, so I'll give them that. But in terms of what we know today, at best, a 6 seed, realistically, a 8 seed, as you said.
Yeah.
And that to me is a bit dangerous, but it's really all Kings fans can really hold on to, right? It's really all management can like hold on to, because they're taking this route where they're not rebuilding, they're not tanking. They're once again in the middle, so they have to really retool and add to what they have. And for the first time, I genuinely do feel like they have a direction, unlike other years where they have two foundational pieces that they can build on. Now, does that mean that you give Miles Bridges or John Collins 30 and 25 respectively? I don't know. That's a tough question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you look at it from like a bigger picture, I think a lot of people that aren't a part of the Sacramento Kings fan base are just like, how are Kings fans even saying that, like, oh, we don't want John Collins? I mean, not John Collins or Miles Bridges, to be honest.
Right.
When they would easily be our third best player, arguably even second best player. Some people might say, you know. I think
Whoever's
that's the
saying that
question
is
I wanna
ludicrous, man. I mean, we just had De'Aaron Fox in the last 16 games, pretty much averaged 29 points, 7 assists, 4 boards, on 50, 38, and 77 splits, on 58% true percentage shooting. That's crazy to me. I mean, if we get that version of Fox, which even if they get 25-point Fox, that's winning. And like that's that's an all-star to me.
I got a question for you, Leo. Would you
Okay.
rather give that money to Miles Bridges or Andrew Wiggins?
I'd rather give that money to Miles Bridges.
Really?
I do.
Wow, that's
I think
interesting.
I can't be a prisoner of the moment with Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins, as I said, I think last week in one of the pods, where he is a great testament to perseverance, but also a player that is truly in the right situation, in the right culture.
Agreed.
What is he outside of Golden State? Does he resort back to being that player that he used to be? Or does he continue with his success, because his role is very defined? And that's one of the things that the Kings have never done with their role players and just players in general. They don't give these guys defined roles. Like, we may have a player play 5 straight games and then, get 5 straight DMPs, or, get 20 minutes and then get like 30 minutes. Like, that's the problem, role optimization. And that's something that the Kings haven't done in so long. So don't want to sidetrack, because that's a completely different topic. But it's important to really, give these fans an outlook. And we appreciate everybody on the chat already. We'll get to your guys' questions as soon as possible. But before we do, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. We're also starting a Substack as our new website per se for Cowboy Kingdom. So lots of Kings articles going to go on there with Vince and Tyson are going to write there. Maybe Ty, but Ty's focusing more on the video side. And we got a Kevin Durant video coming soon. I already edited the audio version, so I just got to put the B-roll on top of that. Also, huge shout out to Chasen's of El Grove. Great atmosphere, great food. Make sure you guys hit them up and continue to support your local businesses. It really helps out a lot. But yes, let's go over what we kind of already went over. Miles Bridges, I don't think it's realistic, as you said and as I said, but it would be nice to have him, and make no mistake about it. Like, duh. But at that price, it's definitely something that you got to think about. But let's talk about someone who is realistic, and tell me how you feel about him. TJ Warren, who essentially hasn't played in 2 years. He's 28 years old, and he had his best year with Domantas Sabonis. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think when I hear TJ Warren, like, it's tough because I think the Kings are just in a position where, like, beggars can be choosers. You know what I mean? And, like, whatever guy we want to bring in, especially more depth at the wing position, they're going to come with, like, some flaws, right? There's no way we're going to get a guy that, can be almost like a Miles Bridges or, like, I guess, like a Bradley Beal, right? Someone that's, like, pretty much going to demand the max and has a market out there for him. I think for TJ Warren, I don't know. I think that a lot of people are just hung up on that bubble year or whatever, that he just went crazy for a little bit. I think historically, looking at his career, he hasn't been anything special. I know a lot of Kings fans have been talking about, like, TJ Warren can kind of be that guy to fill in that Harrison Barnes role. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I think that he's, like, somewhat of a two-way player, right? That's how you would kind of describe him. But at the same time, like, he
Not
did
really.
get sunned by Jimmy Butler, right? So
Yeah.
I think at the same time, like, It was more so like he had a Cinderella moment, a little stretch of games. But I don't think T.J. Warren's going to be the answer to solving the Kings' playoff drought. I think at most, what he's probably going to. I don't even think he would be a 20-point per game scorer in a Sacramento
No.
Kings uniform for sure.
It's,
So
it's
I
yeah,
mean,
it's super hard to really forecast something like that just because we haven't watched him play in so long, right? And
yeah,
again, he did have his best year with Sabonis, which I think a lot of players, if they understand how to cut off the weak side, Domas will find you. I mean, if you're a
yeah,
high level, and we
absolutely.
saw what Harrison Barnes was with him. We're like, damn, like this version of HB with this guy is exactly what they need. You know, and they went out, they drafted Keegan Murray. Well, again, we'll probably get touch on that, but that's a smart player who doesn't make mistakes, who knows how to play basketball, and is a very good fit next to him. Which is why all these guys that we're talking about has a lot of bearing on what Keegan Murray can be, will be, and how the Kings should utilize him this season. Because getting a guy like John Collins, going back to it, because this is free agency, but also they got to make some trades because a lot of these guys won't walk into and willingly sign with the Kings. I mean, let's be honest. This is a terrible organization, and we got to call it the way it is. So the Kings have no money. They have two assets, okay, which is what every team has.
Assets.
They have the MLE, which is about 10.4 million. They got the biannual exception, which is about a little bit over 4. That's about $14 million separately. Okay, they can use the MLE with different players, but I don't think anybody gonna take a pay cut here. So you kind of had to anticipate that they're gonna use some, that $9-10 million on one player. Same with the biannual, about $4 million on the player. They have 2 trade exceptions, one for Tyrese Halliburton and one for Marvin Bagley. Believe it or not. I think Tyrese is about $3 or $4 million, and Bagley is about $1.5 million, or like 2, I think. Let me look at my notes again. But roughly, that's what they have to use in a trade. So it's there's value in that for sure. So that's what they have at their disposal. Not much to work with, but they do have something, right? So how much will a guy like T.J. Warren command? I mean, he hasn't played in 2 seasons. I wouldn't use my MLE on him. That's about $10 million. No way. And with the biannual, you could take a flyer and say, all right, 1 year, $4 million. All right, let's do it. Let's take the risk. Bet on yourself. If you play well, Kings will reward you. We've seen them do it to a lot of players on this team. Let's not name some names. But, I mean, that's what they do. That's what they do. So let's talk about another guy on this graphic, Bruce Brown, who I love. The guy's a hooper. He plays all over the floor. He understands his role. Who knows what the hell is going on with the Brooklyn Nets, who, again, as I alluded, Ty's coming out with a great video there, and he'll dive into that. But there's a lot of uncertainty, man. How do you feel about Bruce Brown signing here for the MLE?
I think Bruce Brown is like the most ideal free agent prospect for the Sacramento Kings. Somebody that's gonna, give it to you on both ends, but also be able to knock down a 3 ball. I think that if we're looking at the Kings going into next season, just like you mentioned earlier about Domantas Sabonis, right, being able to find guys that are moving without the ball. I think we're probably going to talk about this a little bit later on, but I think Keegan Murray is going to fit really nicely among this Kings roster, and I think that he's going to be able to make cuts and hit the 3 ball, and that's exactly what I think Bruce Brown would bring to the table. I think that, I mean, if you're really looking at his like most relatable comparison, he's basically a Gary Payton that can shoot the ball. You know what I mean? And I think that everybody's kind of loving the whole Gary Payton hype right now. And I think Bruce Brown, yeah, once again, would be an ideal fit for the Sacramento Kings, whether it is in that starting shooting guard role or even that 6th man. I think if we're just also being realistic once again, I would say that Bruce Brown, you might want to even put him ahead of Dante DiVincenzo, and that's arguably going to be a guy that the Kings are going to be starting at the shooting guard position, although that is an uncertain for the future. The only unfortunate thing I do think about with Bruce Brown is the fact that he would much rather return to a Brooklyn team if that team is still intact, or even go to another contender. I think that Bruce Brown, especially at this state of his career, isn't in a position where he wants to just like join a team like Sacramento and I guess see where he can contribute. I think he'd much rather go to a playoff or a championship contender, or once again be able to play alongside a Kyrie or KD. But yeah, to reiterate, I think Bruce Brown would be the most ideal fit for Sacramento.
Okay, I do. Guy's a hooper. I wouldn't mind having Bruce Brown and Dante. Like those are two guys that I
Yeah.
would be ecstatic about. You honestly talk about two guys that are just tough nosed. They crash the boards. They just understand the rules, and they're just good players.
Absolutely.
God, I'm just losing my damn voice. COVID thing's
You're all
killing me,
good.
bro. Um, let's talk about Cody Martin and Caleb Martin. Cody Martin is restricted, playing for the Hornets. I have a lot of history both because they both went to my school, University of Nevada, Reno. Hell of a basketball player, both of them. They're both winners. They stat the stat sheet. They stuffed the stat sheet in so many different ways. Last year, he averaged about 38% from beyond the arc. He just knows how to play the game of basketball. But he's restricted. His brother, Caleb, plays for the Heat. Also had a very good year, right? Shot about 41% from three. He's a better scorer, but I think Cody's a better playmaker. Either one, like if you can snatch one, you're winning basketball. Like that would be my ideal. My God, I'm losing my voice. But if and then he's unrestricted. Do you think it's possible for the Kings to lure one of these two guys away from, these teams that are in better situation than the Kings?
Yeah, I think that if they're willing at this stage of their career to take a risk on themselves and see if they can, possibly explore a bigger role here in Sacramento, that's the one luxury I guess we have to offer. And just like you mentioned earlier, we like to reward people that I guess play well for a little while. I think Cody, that's the one that's in Charlotte, right? I personally feel like Cody's way better than Caleb. I think that although they are comparable, I do kind of like Cody's game a little bit better offensively. Caleb was the one that, correct me if I'm wrong, went back to the G League for a little bit, right, to earn his role back with Miami. Yeah,
So Caleb's a better scorer, but I've always felt like Cody was just a better all around player. But
yeah,
Caleb really improved his shot, which was just hideous. But anyone who goes to Miami improves their shot. I mean,
yeah.
having one of the best coaches in the world in Rob Fedor, just a world class organization, guys are gonna improve. And we always talk about the Twins and like if the Heat could ever get their hands on one, they did, and they turned him into a really good player. He was already good, but now he built winning habits, and that matters,
Yeah.
right?
Even outside of looking at the Kings' current roster configuration, I do really like both of those guys just for their mentality and what they bring to the floor. But then, once again, looking back at the roster configuration, you mean to tell me you wouldn't take either of the Martin twins over our backup power forwards now in Mo Harkless and Chimezi Metu? I think those are the questions you have to ask yourself, and I think those are kind of no-brainers at this point.
Without question. So if they can get one, they're winning. I mean, these are guys that can play the 2, 3, and 4 easily. Like they'll go in there.
Mm-hmm.
Cody can play some backup point, but I mean, you already have that with Davion Mitchell. So there's no need for that unless you have injuries. But again, he is capable of doing that there. 26 years old, and both of them. I mean, they are twins. One's unrestricted and one's restricted. So we'll see what happens there. Another guy that we can talk about is Kyle Anderson. Not the best shooter, but he does a lot of things that doesn't show up in the box score. But he's a good player, man. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Kyle Anderson, man, slow
Slow
mo. I
mo.
think that he's one of those. Yeah, he's almost like a meme in terms of just like the way that he plays and the fact that he's still able to be productive. I think with Kyle Anderson, you can almost like make a very similar argument to Andrew Wiggins. Not to say that they're the same player, but the fact that in a more limited role they're able to be more productive. I think that's why Memphis was able to get the most out of him. I think here in Sacramento, we definitely need a lot. We would be asking a lot out of a guy like Kyle Anderson. So I don't know if he'd be the best fit here in Sacramento. However, I don't think that takes anything away from Kyle Anderson. I think he's definitely solidified himself as an NBA player. Not only just like a fringe role player, but I think he definitely could be a starter on some teams in this league, right? I think Memphis definitely just has a lot of depth there. I think once again, he's just one of those guys that does it both ends of the floor. I think occasionally he'll, with that slow release, he'll knock one down every once in a while. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So you have to
Mm-hmm.
step out there a little bit. I just think that if he doesn't end up returning to Memphis, he's gonna get paid by somebody. Probably not something crazy, but I think
Yeah, I mean
Sacramento configuration. I mean,
he's
I think you can attest to it too. I'd rather have Harrison Barnes than Kyle Anderson.
100%. I mean he's coming off a 4-year, $37 million deal. That's a lot of money. He's not getting anywhere near that. But let's move on. Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors. We got some Raptor fans on here as well. Shout out to Raptors Nation. Love you guys. Chris Boucher, unrestricted free agent. Last year it was a hot commodity. Kind of came back down to earth. He can stretch the floor. He's lanky. He fits with what the Kings need. But after drafting Keegan, I don't love it anymore. Yeah. But him coming off the bench and, scoring some threes, I don't mind it because he does provide that rim protection that could be helpful if you're playing with a guy like Sabonis off the weak side, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Chris Boucher is just one of those guys where, like, you know what I mean? He can randomly give you a really nice double-double on one night, and then the next night, if he's not having it going, he's kind of really unproductive in that retrospect. I think that you bring up a really good point about how, the Kings' glaring hole was that power forward and shooting guard, and I think that Keegan Murray, if he is going to be able to turn into that player that can stretch the floor and play defense, is a more ideal fit. I think that, Chris Boucher would definitely be really cool to have on this Kings roster. Just a little bit more versatile. I think the Kings definitely have a log jam at the center position, right? I mean, Rashawn Holmes, Alex Len, Damian Jones still have to keep going on.
Stewart said he saw Chris Boucher at Aria in Las Vegas this weekend as a sign. That's funny.
Put a little money on roulette.
There you go.
Remember what numbers he wearing.
So that's one option there. Let us know in the comments below. And obviously, the one that hurt was Tarion Prince, who just got extended by the T-Wolves right now. Earlier today, Woj broke the news. Hell of a basketball player. I feel like he has been underutilized in many, but he accepted the extension because they got some good going there. So I respect him for that. So we got Javi calling. Give us a sec, Javi. I'm going to put you in the green room. Yeah.
In the meantime, Leo, would you rather have a Chris Boucher or Obama?
Oh, Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher.
I think
why?
Obama's a little wild card. You know what I mean? Like, do you believe in kind of like this little promising little run that Obama had this last year, or do you think he's going to revert back to what we kind of
Oh man, I'm not a big Bamba fan. Like, I've never been a big Bamba fan, so it's just one of those things, man.
Yeah.
I prefer a guy like Boucher who knows how to win because he's been part of a winning culture. Yeah. I think that matters, and I just don't want to bring those bad habits from Mo Bamba. Not to say that he wouldn't work, but I'm just not a big fan of him. Like, I'd rather keep a guy like Damian Jones who kind of already understands his role. He's a backup. He's going to give you solid minutes. He still has room to improve his game as a backup. I'm not going to say he's a starter because he's not.
Yeah.
But in that, I rather have him, but I can see your point of view with him. But again, Tarion Prince, tough. I feel like he was a hot commodity for a lot of teams, shooting about 38% from beyond the arc. A good 3-and-D guy. Another guy that a lot of fans want to talk about is Otto Porter. Is he realistic coming to the Kings and, being that, not that anchor, but that defensive presence and defensive vet for Mike Brown?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, right, talking about that connection with Mike Brown and Otto Porter in Golden State. I feel like after the injury, Otto Porter I feel like his best days are behind him, in my opinion. Once again, bringing up Golden State and how in a more limited role, we're able to see players kind of, I guess, revitalize their career. I think here in Sacramento, though, like, what was it, a few years ago when the Kings wanted to offer Michael Porter Jr. that contract when he re-signed in Washington. I think at the end of the day, like, once again, we've talked about it in our group chat, like, Harrison Barnes is one of our trade assets, but at the same time, there's not a lot of players out there that can do what Harrison Barnes does better than him. And I think that although it's not like the sexy opinion, Harrison Barnes is a solid 3-and-D guy, and that, even though he might not give you that 25 plus a night or even 20 plus a night, he's somebody that's going to give it to you every night. And so when you look at a guy like Otto Porter, I don't know if he's really the answer. I think that once again, he was able to do well in Golden State, but if he were to sign somewhere like I don't know, Sacramento or Indiana, like, what's really his ceiling,
Good point. I mean, I'm not going after him, but I do see the appeal from him. So that's Otto Porter Jr. another name is Daniel House. Not a sexy name, but a guy that can come off your bench. He has that Monte McNair connection from his Houston days. I believe that the Kings did try and get him on that waiver wire, but he chose to go to Utah. Do you see some value there in a Daniel House?
I think that one's very, very interesting. Daniel House was the guy that got sent home during the bubble, right? I
Mm, I don't
thought I thought
remember.
he got sent home for having someone in his room.
Was it
Correct me if
him?
I'm wrong in the comments. But with that being
Yeah,
said, yeah, Daniel House, what he did had a nice solid little run with Houston with James
he
Harden,
did.
but now I feel like he's become an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, the point like the Kings really can't be beggars can't be choosers here. So
Right.
I think Daniel House being able to bring that dog mentality and play defense and hit a three ball every once in a while because right now we have no real shooting guard or small forward depth. I think I'd definitely be willing to throw something minimal at him, nothing too crazy, right? Just to kind of give him a flyer. But at the same time, like I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, Daniel House is going to be someone that's going to be playing 20 plus minutes a night for Sacramento.
100%. So this is one of my favorites, and I feel like the Kings have to go and get him. I think he's a player that, in the right situation, which again, the Kings are it's hard to say with a straight face that the Kings are a right situation, but he has history with Mike Brown, and that's Josh Okogie, right? Who had a strong start to his career with the T Wolves. He's an afterthought now. That team is good. So that's not a knock on him. The only knock
Yeah.
is that he hasn't improved his 3-point shot, but he is just a defensive menace. Like this guy can play defense at a high level. Very physical. He does a lot of other things, right? And it's just his 3-point shot. Do the Kings have the infrastructure, like the Raptors, like the Spurs, like the Heat, to help
Mm.
him to improve his 3-point shot? The answer as of today is no. But that doesn't mean that you don't take a risk on the guy that's 23 years old, that's an unrestricted free agent, that has the lowest value he's ever had, to try and get him on the cheap, or just try and get him on the fair value, because that's a guy that maybe you couldn't get before that you could get now. And again, he has a history playing for Team Nigeria with Coach Mike Brown, so there is that chemistry there already with that coaching staff. So I can see them going after a guy like that, and I just feel like he'd be a very good fit with the Kings. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail. I think Josh Okogie is just one of those guys that seem more of a realistic option for Sacramento. You were talking about that connection with the Nigeria team. I know that
Mm,
right Chimezi Metu as well. So I think these are guys that Mike Brown wouldn't mind bringing in. And like once again, Sacramento can't attract guys that are most sought after free agents. So we're gonna have to go after guys that haven't really met their potential or even have a history of injuries. So yeah, I think I completely agree. I think Josh Okogie is one of those guys that I definitely saw him potentially having a bigger role in Minnesota had he been able to develop more. But once you draft a guy like Anthony Edwards and you bring in a few other guys, it's hard to really get a bigger role and opportunity there. So yeah, I think Josh Okogie is also one of those guys I feel like internally would love to kind of reinvent himself and come to a team like
100%.
Sacramento and isn't necessarily like a sought after playoff championship
Mm-hmm.
contender type player, right? So yeah, there's just a lot of opportunity there for him. I think, yeah, once again, that Mike Brown connection, why not come to Sacramento and create something
It's
new?
it's crazy to think, but I think he could become a better version of Bruce Brown, and that's saying a lot, right?
Mm,
Like that's a comparable player that he should be looking up to. Be like, okay, how far away am I from a Bruce Brown? Can I use the Kings as leverage, as a stepping stool to get to that point? Yes, because both the organization and the player
yeah.
would win, right? It's like a win-win there. And that's how I would view it. If I'm him, you go in there on a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. I think,
Hmm.
and then you give the Kings depth, but a potential starter if he kills it in training camp. We'll see, but that's how I view him. I mean, a guy that has a lot of upside, and that's still young enough, and that I hate to use this damn term, that fits the timeline, because
Yeah.
fitting the timeline to me is like you should only use that with a foundational piece,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't see role players as fitting the timeline with your two foundational pieces now. Like I've never seen it that way. People want to use John Collins as, oh, he fits the timeline, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's overpaid. That doesn't mean that Keegan Murray won't outplay him next year, and then he's going to become the fourth option. Yes, he might come here and be a third option, but correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't a huge issue that he's not happy with his role playing with Trae Young, which if you're not happy there, I mean, you ain't gonna be happy here. You know what I'm saying? So is that gonna bring up drama for a John Collins? Like that's my concern with him, honestly.
Yeah, I think John Collins is one of those guys that thinks he's more than what he is. At the end of the day, he's a lob threat. And my personal opinion, I think if Miles Bridges ends up walking from Charlotte, I think he'd actually be a great fit alongside LaMelo Ball, being able to catch those same lobs for Miles Bridges.
He
That's
would.
just my opinion.
He would, and he can also stretch out the floor. So definitely can shoot that ball. But he's limited defensively. He's limited offensively in terms of creating his own shot. I don't say personally he needs to be set up by other players, which again is not a bad thing. And he's still, very young, so he can improve that aspect of his game. But at $25 million already, man, that's tough to swallow. Again, not to say that I won't be happy if they get him because you're improving your roster. Like this team is bad. Like you have to improve your roster. Beggars can't be choosers, as Ty said. But definitely that. So let's talk about the next guy, Isaiah Robbie. Shot about 44% from beyond the arc, 10 points a game, five boards. Is that a guy that interests you?
I think this is probably one of the first guys that really I feel like I'm very impartial about. I mean, he's a player. I think that I actually got to see him live a couple games because I went to a few Thunder Kings games at Golden One Center. And I think that I don't know, very just nothing crazy. I think that a few of the guys that you mentioned, there's a little bit more upside there, like with the Kojis, etc. With a guy like Roby, I think that I don't know, he just kind of seems more of like a project that OKC has. Right, they have a million of those guys over there. I think that once again, I guess this is a hot take. I don't think Trey Mann is everything that everybody's making him out to be in OKC, but obviously. Roby isn't as good as Trey Mann, but at the same time, I don't think he's
Trey Mann would be beautiful. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't think Roby's a guy that really does anything here in Sacramento. I don't think he's a guy that does anything anywhere in the league. That's how strongly I feel about it. I think that at the end of the day, he's just another player to me, another whatever free agent.
Derrick Jones Jr. The Kings actually wanted him last year, or was it the year before? I forget. I think it was last year. He went to Portland. Yeah. It's the year that he signed with Portland, and then he got traded to Miami. Did he get traded to Miami? I'm so confused on he's in Chicago. He's in Chicago. My bad. So he's now in Chicago. He's 25 years old. His value is at an all-time low. I definitely see him cutting off as a bonus, playing in transition with De'Aaron Fox. I still think he's a good fit, and this might be the chance to get him at its all-time low for, say, the biannual exception. Am I crazy to think that? Or is he saying, hell nah, I'm going there for the MLE?
Yeah, I think that I don't think he's going to demand the MLE. I think that Derrick Jones Jr., he's just kind of like one of those journeymen, right? That's, just based off his athleticism, he's going to be able to find a home somewhere. I just think that, kind of similar to Roby, I think that, what does Derrick Jones Jr. really bring to this roster? I think that I almost, wouldn't you still take Justin Holiday over Derrick Jones Jr.?
He's not.
Right? I think when we bring up these free
they're
agents,
both,
how much better are they than our current guys on our roster?
I would say upside-wise, yes, Derrick Jones, but in terms of, what are they right now? Sure, I mean, you can make an argument, and this isn't a popular take because a lot of Kings fans hate Justin Holiday for whatever reason, just because he didn't have the best shooting, percentages here in Sacramento. But if you actually optimize him to come off your bench and not start, always setting up your players to fail, right? He's not a starter, but he had to start in Sacramento. I mean, it's unfortunate, but if he's coming off your bench, he's a very reliable, good player with high basketball IQ, who understands how to cut, who's a good defender. And I just feel like he got a lot of slack with the Kings. But that's a guy that has chemistry with Sabonis. And again, it may not be the most popular take, but yes, I think they're right there. I mean, I like Holiday, and I like him off my bench. So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't mind Derrick, but he needs to come at a very, low prove-it deal for me.
And for that price, wouldn't he rather go to a better team? Just to be quite frank.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jalen Smith, a guy who I've notoriously has slammed for being a bust, a guy that was taken before Tyrese Halliburton. I always think about what if the Suns would have drafted Tyrese. It'd be a lot different right now. But they drafted Jalen Smith, who actually, he got maximized with Tyrese. Like, Tyrese maximized him, and he used him very well. Now, there was a ton of Pacers fans who want him back, but they really can't offer that much money because of the Suns I think it was not extending his option. So other teams can come in there and swoop him up for like $4, $5, $6 million for a year on a prove-it deal. Now, he averaged about 9 points last year. He can block some shots. He looked very good. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, he had good stretches with the Suns. Not very consistent, but he did. And
But like, who do the Pacers have?
yeah,
He had to play. You know what I mean?
facts. I mean, that's a great
And
point.
like, wouldn't you rather have Rashawn Holmes than Jalen Smith too?
Oh my
You know what I
God, yes.
I'd rather take Damian Jones over Jalen Smith too.
That's a great point. That's a great point, man.
So,
Ty just killed the vibe, man. I'm just kidding, man. Hey, that's why Ty's on to keep it 100, man. Here I am trying to gather my damn breath. Let's
Jalen
talk
Smith did get a lot
about.
of hype at the end of the season, though. I did see a few double
He did.
games, but at the same time, it's like
He got a lot of hype.
Pacers, dude.
It's the
Like, he's
Pacers.
getting
Like,
minutes.
nobody
He has-
was playing. Gary Harris. How do you feel about him?
Like this one's a weird one too because I know once again like Kings fans are a little bit kind of like looking at him and seeing that what he's not too old, right? Like 27, 28 around there, I believe.
He is 27.
Yeah, 27, 28. And I think that he had a pretty solid year in Orlando last year, if I remember. And I think that with Gary Harris, like it kind of makes me want to look back to when he was back in Denver. And then I think we talked about this before, right? Jamal Murray and Gary Harris were like right there at one point. You know what I mean? Not to say that Gary Harris is anywhere near Jamal Murray now. I'll definitely take a Jamal Murray coming off of an injury over Gary Harris. But at the same time, I think that Gary Harris does definitely have a lot to offer that the Kings need, right? Another 3-and-D guy that the Kings really need help on. I think that, I would feel comfortable saying that I would definitely take a Gary Harris over a Justin Holiday, over a Terrence Davis. I think that the real question is, do you think Gary Harris is better than Dante DiVincenzo? Because I think that in terms of contract-wise, right, like where are you really putting your money? I think that Gary Harris, right, wouldn't he demand a little more than the mid-level exception that we're hoping that DiVincenzo brings back, right?
That's a good point, man. I don't know. Like, I'm still a big Dante fan. I just feel like he had a tough year, and he's not fully recovered from that ankle injury from his time with the Bucks. But I also can't tell you and look you in the face and look thousands of Kings in the face and say, I think he starts on day one because I don't know that. Because we can only go off of what we know. And we saw him struggle, and we don't know where he's at mentally right now.
Yeah.
His catch and shooting was solid, but man, he just had a tough time shooting the ball, man. Like De'Aaron Fox was killing it, right? Like putting up damn near 30 points a game. But then he could not find his jump shot with him. Davion could not find it with De'Aaron. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know. And it's a huge, again, which is why I'm so mad about what the Kings lacked in on draft night. Like, they didn't leverage the number 4. I get it. Now with all these reports and saying that, well, the Pacers would have drafted Keegan at 4, blah, blah. As I said, Monte could have easily just leaked that out to Mr. Wu from Sports Illustrated. He's like, let me control the damn narrative again in Sacramento because fans are upset. It's so easy to do. The problem is that too many leaks came out for Monte, and he lost leverage. It's that simple. Like, he could not control the narrative because everybody had the intel that he wanted Keegan. So when everybody found out, if I'm Detroit, I'm not offering anything anymore because like you want to draft Keegan and you're not going to draft Jaden. And then it didn't help that Tyrese's agent came out and said that Ivy didn't want to play there. So even more so, and the Kings just lost leverage, day after day after day, to the point where they couldn't move out of it because they were threatened, supposedly, that the Pacers would take him at 4, which I still call cap on that. And again, to me, that's Monte just leaking that out to a reporter, just to put the news out there, just to try and make Kings fans feel good about themselves. But at the end of the day, I'm ecstatic about Keegan. I'm just not ecstatic about just having Keegan, not having a Keegan Jeremy, a Keegan, Sadiq Bey.
Absolutely.
Like, they should have leveraged that position a lot more because it was a 4-player draft. I'm not saying he's not the right pick. I do believe Keegan's the right pick, well, like without question. But I'm just unhappy with the fact that they didn't gain a starter with Keegan. Now, we all have to move on. But that, me complaining doesn't mean that we can't discuss it. You know what I'm saying? Like, people, you just complaining. Sure. I'm like, bro, like, what else are we going to do? I mean, that's what we're all here, talking about this. Like, and that's my point. Like, I'm not trying to be like a negative Nancy. I'm just saying the Kings did not play their cards right. And it's that simple.
Yeah, I think that, everybody and their mom knew that Detroit wanted Jaden Ivey.
Exactly.
Once again, the fact that we couldn't control that narrative and the fact that, the Kings were pretty. Another thing I didn't like about the Kings pre-draft process was also the fact that we weren't working out a lot of the top guys in the lottery. I feel like just to, even if we weren't interested in it, what I mean? I think it says something, the fact that we bring him here to Sacramento. I think Keegan was one of the only few lottery picks that came to Sacramento, so it made it even more abundantly clear that was kind of.
And he had lunch and dinner with Fox and the Ox. I'm like, why would you let that leak out though?
Yeah.
So like you lost all leverage at that point. And then when like Portland pulled the trigger on Jeremy Grant, you for sure lost everything because at that point, Detroit's like, okay, I'll take Keegan at 5, or I'll take Mathurin, and then at that point you're just like, okay, well if that happens, Indiana takes him at 6. So, damn man, like it's unfortunate, but we do got to move on. So we talked about Gary Harris, and let's talk about Victor Oladipo. I think that's
that name up.
The prime guy that the Kings have to go after. He's 30 years old. He looked phenomenal defensively in the Eastern Conference Finals. He looked like himself defensively. How do you feel about him?
I think Victor Oladipo is one of those guys. I know we kind of talked about a little bit about Okogie that would almost be willing to take a chance on Sacramento and really try to, reinvent himself and prove that, he's still that guy. I think that, right, we definitely got to see stretches against the Celtics where this guy was almost looking like the best defender on the floor. So with Victor Oladipo, I think obviously the biggest concern with him is the injuries. And I think that it really comes into the question on what type of market and contract is he going to try to demand. I think that Victor Oladipo, I would love to see him in the Sacramento Kings uniform, truthfully, because I think that he does a lot of the things that the Kings need, 3 and D. And I think that, once again, our glaring hole here is at the shooting guard position. So I think the fact that he can guard multiple positions in the event that, De'Aaron Fox is going crazy on offense and doesn't want to put that effort in on defense that we've seen in the past, Victor Oladipo can really pick up that slack. I think, one point I really don't want to undermine is the injury history. What type of money are we going to give a guy that, could potentially end up playing 30, 40 games for you? I think that the Kings definitely would rather have somebody that they can rely on. But I think another point to kind of argue for Victor Oladipo, the free agent market is tough this year. And I think that considering the limitations that the Kings have salary cap-wise, he might be one of our best options in terms of taking a swing and potentially a home run or potentially a miss.
Man, I like him a lot. And as you said, defensively, if he's healthy, the guy is really good. He's a guy that's at the point of attack. He's going to make you work for everything. And it just comes down to where is he offensively? He's been out for a long time. Same with the guy like Dante. Like, if those two guys are your shooting guards, I hate to admit it, but in a good way, because I think the Kings are in a good situation. Those two guys know how to win basketball games. One guy is winning a championship with the Bucks. The other guy has been an All-NBA player. Albeit, if you get him, it's going to be like on a 1-year deal, about, I don't know, $9-10 million if he accepts. But again, there's gonna be a lot of competition for him, right? Like,
Hmm.
why would he come here? You know, and
I think something that you can mention is the fact that Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, they've been playing with each other. They were together in OKC. They were together in Indiana. If he firmly believes that Sabonis is the guy that can help elevate his game, why not come here to Sacramento? And I think that, I don't want to keep making this like a thing that like, oh, with Mike Brown, like we're a completely different team, a different reputation. But I think, yeah, having kind of that chemistry with Domantas Sabonis and almost acknowledging the fact that, at the 30-year-old age that, he can kind of loosen that load and give it to De'Aaron Fox to be that main guy. If he doesn't have to be that primary scorer, why not come here and, average 15 to 20 points a game?
there he is. There he is.
Oh, Lord.
We got Javi on the line, man. Here we go. How you
How
feeling,
you guys
man?
doing? How my brothers doing? Leo, Todd.
What's good, Javi?
Oh man, we're just here going over Victor Oladipo, man. But I do want to just throw you right into the fire, Javi. And it's a great point that I talked about in the Keegan podcast, which is I hope this organization don't really believe that he's a three. Not to say that he can't play spot minutes at the three because he is athletic enough, but this organization tends to set up players to fail a lot, Javi,
Yes.
as you know. And he's a true four. Like, he's a natural four. He was the best player in college basketball at the four. Please don't try and play him at the three because he's going to get toasted by the quicker threes in the league. And then we're going to be like, oh, man, he sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, so let's not do that to the young kid right away. Play him at his position. And which is why I'm so skeptical about getting a guy like John Collins. But yet again, you have to upgrade, right, the overall talent, and then you can trade, John down the line again. But your thoughts about potentially, Kings fans and, other consensus playing Keegan at the three, Javi?
Wouldn't say so much playing him at the three would be the best solution, but I'm just really taken away from the notion that why can't he come off as a reserve? And they're like, well, he's the 4th overall pick. I'm not attributing that as like a failure. But what I'm saying is the Kings fans or even, some of the Kings media make it sound, well, he drafted the 4th overall pick. He needs to be a starter. But the Kings aren't in a position to act as if the talent level here prior to him being drafted was solidified to contend for a playoff spot. Like my proposition that I made last 48 to 72 hours was I would call Atlanta and I would send Rashawn Holmes an unprotected pick in 2023 for John Collins, and then I would go and try to get the MLE to Victor Oladipo, and I'd run out De'Aaron with Oladipo, Harrison, John Collins, and Sabonis, and then on my bench I get the Davion, Terrence Davis, or DiVincenzo, Mo Harkless, Keegan, and Jones. And why? End of the day, the kid is 22. Granted, John Collins 24, but I'm saying John Collins been in the league for 3-4 years. He got drafted 17, 18. This man, Keegan Murray, got drafted last week. Like I'm just very confused here of why we're so like, well, we have a starting four. No, we have a very promising four that is a combo four rather, that can do a lot of different things that his skill set at Iowa.
Well, damn. Javi's using logic, man. I'm proud of you, bro.
I was about to say that. Javi, what was this in the group chat?
Oh my God. Okay, man. All right, Javi. Javi is back, man. Yes, like what he just said, that's the perspective from a Warriors fan who knows how to win basketball, right? Like that's crazy because all Kings fans say, oh, he's the number 4 pick. He has to start. Yes and no. Right. Why does he have to start? Right. So he has to earn it, right? Like if he earns it, yes, like start. But
listen, De'Aaron Fox was the 5th overall pick, Leo, in 2017, and
that's true.
And they're gonna say, well, he came in and started halfway through.
But they started, but they had George Hill over him. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous.
But what I'm saying is he still did not start to begin the year. What I'm saying is they went full tankathon. the Kings are in a position now where they're saying we are playing to make the playoffs. Like, so I don't want to hear that. Well, he's the best available option currently. Yes, but there are available players on the trade block right now that are better primed and positioned to help us compete for a playoff spot in 2022, 2023. That's not taking anything away from Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray can be a solid 25, 30-minute player, and like I said, he can play. Let this hypothetically
Okay,
say,
so let me ask you this, which is what I asked Ty earlier, which is a concern of mine. What's his name? John Collins. There's been a lot of not speculation, like this is a fact. Like he's unhappy with his role, right? And I'm like, well, who's the second best player on the Hawks? It like has to be him or like Capella, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if he's unhappy with his role playing with Trae Young and playing winning basketball, what does he think he's coming here for? Like he's gonna be your third option. Like he's not your second option. He's not your first option. So my thing is, if they trade for him, will he be unhappy here? I mean, that to me that's a real concern, and like no one's talking about that.
I think the reason why he would feel a sense of scenery being shifted in the opposite directions because the starting five in Atlanta, not only
Capella.
do they utilize their 2 and their 3 with a lot more touches than we would do per se without Oladipo, obviously. But I'm saying not just that, they have backups, the reserves on that team that could start on numerous amounts of teams, which a few of them start on our team. So from Bogdanovich to Herder to their starting 3, which was they had Reddish, they traded him, and then they also played a multitude of guys at 3. But I'm saying they had guys that were getting consistent, or DeAndre Hunter. Capella's a volume. Not I won't say just a scorer, but he's consistently involved in their offensive action, where it would take the ball out of his hands. Sabonis and Clint Capella do not play the same. When you put Clint Capella with a John Collins is 180 degrees different when you put a Sabonis with a John Collins, because
That's true.
Sabonis is at the top of the key and distribute to Collins, slash to the basket. Clint Capella's not a guy that's going to be at the top of the paint distributing assists to John Collins, slash to the cup.
But Trae Young is a great pick and roll partner. He's one of the elite passers in the NBA. So, no disrespect to Fox, but like you're going from from Trae to Fox. You know what I'm saying? So like that's where I'm just confused there. Like
this is where I think this is where we can meet, the rubber meets the road, where we can find an equal medium, is because De'Aaron is quote unquote not on Trae Young's level per se. But the difference in the level is the amount of opportunity that John Collins will make up for, because they know Trae Young is going to have the ball in his hands 9% of the time. So the ball being in De'Aaron's hands 67% of the time, that gives Collins 10, 20% of the touches. And I'm not saying he's trying to be a selfish player, but it's like at the end of the day, we're in the business of professional sports, bottom line business, and to improve the roster with a player of John Collins' level, why would you not want to take it because you drafted a power forward 4th overall? It isn't as if John Collins and Harrison Barnes and these players are signed here for 10 years. Harrison Barnes is on an expiring contract, and he's 29 years old. And the whole Keegan Murray can't play 3. I respect your opinion. I might differ in some ways of that, but I'm saying, who knows how you'll be in a year? Are you going to re-sign Harrison Barnes at 30 years old to come play small forward next year? That's a question that has to be answered later down the line. But there's no reason to say Harrison Barnes and John Collins can't lead the front forward positioning in our actual starting lineup.
fair.
Like he can develop at a slow but productive and sure way.
And then to your point, if in fact the Kings go after John Collins and then Keegan starts to outplay him, he can later move John Collins, which would be hard to do. But, that's still an asset to have because he's still young enough. And as I said and as Ty said, you have to get the best talent possible. So you make a lot of sense, man. Thoughts on anything that he said, Ty?
Yeah, I think the only point that I would like to make is the fact that John Collins in that role that he expressed that he's not happy in, I think it's almost like a perfect role for him. Being
Exactly.
able to be a screen and roll guy. And
My God,
I mentioned it earlier on in the show that John Collins thinks he's more than what he is. I think the contract says he's more than what he is as well. It's just like one of those situations where kind of like what Javi said, like he would come here and be another screen and roll guy. Like, I think he kind of wants the ball in his hands, being able to make offense for himself. But like, the truth of the matter is,
He
John
ain't
Collins
doing
is
that
not that
here.
guy.
He ain't doing
John
that
Collins is
here.
not that guy that can create his own shot. I don't know what he's thinking.
Kings should go after Lonnie Walker 100%. I mean, he's one of my favorites in this class. Like, if they can go out and snatch a guy like Lonnie, man, that would be a win. Your thoughts on that, Javi?
I mean, this might sound delusional. I want DeJounte Murray. I heard today.
Oh, me too. I mean, damn, like we all want DeJounte Murray.
Whoa. Let me propose what I've heard and just, I guess irrational sense of, a proposition. They said the Kings would trade 3 firsts, Harrison and Rashawn to the Spurs, and even maybe possibly include 2 pick swaps. But then it's mortgaging the future. But that was the number of why they wouldn't want to do it. It's like, I'm not saying I don't care about the future, but I'm tired of thinking about tomorrow. I want to think about winning. I want to win today. And one thing I want to also make sure before we get on to the next point about the next conversation is that what if Keegan Murray outplays Collins? Well, why don't we get rid of Harrison? Because are we going to extend Harrison? And then you say, well, Keegan Murray, well, let's find a way to make it. I mean, this is my, just because I see Keegan Murray's 22, John Collins 24. Are you going to extend Harrison Barnes out of the season? Like, but instead of having to force a trade for Collins out of Sacramento per se, if he got outplayed by Keegan, play them both. And then you move Harrison. But again, you might think that's a stretch. I'm just trying to find the most 23 to 27-year-old dynamic team that can pair around De'Aaron and De'Bonis to where we're in this, like, the timeline situation.
What did I say earlier, Ty, about timeline? That I could care less about timeline when it comes to role players, bro. Like, people got to stop using that damn timeline thing as an argument. Like, I hate it. Are you going
to extend Harrison?
I think you make a very valid point, Javi, about, do you really want to extend the guy that's going to be, 30, 31, and, like, what more is he really going to be? I think we've kind of seen his ceiling in Sacramento, but at the same time, I don't see Keegan Murray or John Collins playing the 3 position. I think that, like, on any given night, playing against the Kevin Durant's, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James is like.
I don't see John Collins playing the 3, but I can see. But Keegan Murray was projected as a combo forward. I mean, you guys might not think he has the versatility to do that now, but he's 22.
Keegan Murray, one of his biggest.
Aaron averaged 12 as a rookie, and he averaged 25 in his 3rd year or 4th year. He went from 12.
But like,
18,
why?
20.
But like, why put him somewhere where he truly has no experience in, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, why set him up to fail?
In the league.
It'd be different, Javi, if we saw a little bit more of the intangibles out of Keegan Murray. But one of his biggest knocks going into the draft was his lack of a quick first step. And I think that Keegan Murray, if you watch a lot of his highlights, like, were a lot of low post entries, kind of catch and shoot threes.
He's a 4. He's a 4. He's a 4.
Create his own
it would
shots.
just be hard for us to sit there and act as if John Collins wouldn't improve his basketball team. And the reason why we're not going to try to acquire him.
And that's the argument, right?
Like, why to say Keegan Murray's reason we're not going to draft or trade for John Collins, that's just incompetent. Like, John Collins is a starting all-star caliber player. I'm not saying he's an all-star caliber power forward in this league at his age, and he's somebody that can significantly improve his team in the interior. And he can shoot the long ball from the perimeter better than most at his position.
So, would you trade Davion Mitchell and 2 firsts for DeJounte Murray?
Yes.
The Spurs are demanding 3 firsts, though.
Huh?
Yes. Yes.
And like
3 first. Hey, Javi, 3 firsts. Yes.
Why not? I mean, this man is a solidified all-star. I mean, what do you mean? Like, Davion, I love Davion, but Davion is not an all-star. I mean, I don't care about the pick. I didn't want to have the pick. To be honest, if we traded the pick last Thursday, I was good with it.
Me too.
What does a DeJounte Murray Sacramento Kings end up in playoff seeding?
43 wins.
Oof.
That's a question we have to consider.
Okay, so for the fans watching, what does a Murray and a Fox backcourt look like? And let us know in the comments below, and I'll ask that to Javi first, and then to Ty second. What does that look like in terms of playing style?
Like Dave Yeager in 2018, 2019 with a shot of steroids. That's
Okay.
what it sounds like to me. Buddy Hield looked like a guy that ran in the Olympics when he played on that team. Imagine having DeJounte Murray in that position. I mean, Buddy Hield's a 3-point sniper. DeJounte Murray is
It's not
a
like a 3-point
San
shooter.
Antonio, Texas version of De'Aaron Fox, and they deem better. He's an all-star. I don't see how Monte could say, "Oh, we're gonna play for the pick in 2-3 years, bro." You might not be here in 2 to 3 years. Like, what are you talking about? You might
Yeah,
not be here in 2026.
facts.
You know
Ty,
what I mean?
go
Like,
ahead.
you need to play for today.
Like, I definitely see both sides of the coin. I definitely see where Hobby's coming from. Like, how are you not going to trade for an all-star? I think it's really hard for me to rationalize giving up those 3 first-round picks for a guy like DeJounte Murray, who clearly would be one of the best players on this roster. But at the same time, like, I mean, what are we at best? Maybe a 8, 7 seed. Like, I think that to mortgage your future like that, I think it's pretty difficult. And I know I'm not. I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, Kings gonna build through the draft again. Kings gonna build through the draft again. But 3 first-round picks, and if they're unprotected, like that's crazy. And I think that to kind of give you a perspective is like Houston got what 3 first-round picks and 3 pick swaps from Brooklyn, and if they don't end up working out, like that's like
Yeah.
Brooklyn's done. Like that's
Yeah,
it. They're over with.
they're
You know what I
done.
mean?
That's
So
crazy.
not to say that the Kings are in any position to be like, oh, like you know what I mean, we're going to be something that's better. But at the same time, like it's tough for me to really rationalize, even though I do think DeJounte Murray would fit well here. At the same time, like DeJounte Murray and De'Aaron Fox are almost like the same players. You could argue, right? Like neither guy really shoots the ball well, but they kind of do other things that are nice. And so I think if you pair the two, it's almost like you have 2 point guards per se that don't really play
Yeah.
D, can't really shoot the 3 ball, but do
Whoa, whoa,
everything
whoa,
else.
whoa,
Like
whoa.
how much?
That's the one thing that
Yeah,
DeJounte does at an elite level, and that's he's one of the best defenders in basketball, bro. And that's
yeah,
the big difference between DeJounte and Fox is that Fox is a capable defender, but analytically, one of the worst defenders in basketball. And then DeJounte is like one of the best defenders in basketball, and very similar to Fox in terms of offensive. Bad free throw shooter, good mid range shooter, great attacker to the basket. Very similar to like can't shoot the 3-point shot, but my God, like if you put those two together, and then he's better off the ball as well than Fox. Like he doesn't necessarily need the ball to be, effective, but him cutting off us a bonus and playing defense and just setting the tone for you. Oh man, and then with the playmaking too. I don't see how that doesn't work out. That makes sense. Like he's a better
yeah,
version of Oladipo. He's a better version of Davion. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Like 3 first, I'll still do it, but it'll probably take 2 firsts and like Davion, in my opinion, because if the Hawks might get him without giving up John Collins for Gallo and 3 firsts,
yeah,
what does Davion bring to the table?
yeah,
So
Promising guard,
right, that's my
Yeah.
point. And if the Spurs want to tank for a Victor next year, I mean, that's a good deal for them because these picks will be unprotected, and you never know with the Kings. So
yeah,
if there's a team that I want unprotected picks from, it's the Kings.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Um,
I just
so
make sure one thing.
go
Oh,
ahead.
my bad.
Go ahead.
Just one thing for Ty is that James Ham, a lot of intel, a lot of insight, a lot of acumen. Most importantly, a lot of history with the Kings, and he said a lot of things pre-draft that I 100% agree with, and that is the whole. Well, what if that pick is better than the player that you're? We don't know, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna bet on a for sure thing. And I think James Ham's came to the point where he was like feeling like I feel for the last 2-3 years. I'd rather bet on a for sure thing. I'm gonna bet on somebody who's proven it rather than hope. You're saying mortgage our future. Mortgage our future for something that's not guaranteed. Like DeJounte Murray is a guaranteed All-Star player. He is an All-Star in 2022. To say, well, he's like De'Aaron Fox. Well, what if the guy that you're holding out hope for in 2024, 2025, 2026 ends up to not be anything worth of any value? But you passed up on DeJounte Murray in 2022 because you were hoping that in 2 years when De'Aaron's 27 that you get some 19, 20-year-olds that like that's all like you're over here reaching for a needle in a haystack. That's what the draft is in any sport, professionally. And granted, that
Yeah.
might be in a naive way of thinking, but I'm just 16 years, dog. And I'm not trying to make this 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not trying to get this to 20 because every time I discuss things with my friends or my coworkers, my colleagues, anybody, they're like, "You're a Kings fan?" And it's like, they're like, they don't understand.
Well, he's a Kings fan and the Warriors fans. In the comments below, let us know if you know anybody on earth that's a diehard fan for both teams. I've never seen it. You know, I tease him a lot about it, but please let me know because I've never seen it, man. Like it's crazy to me.
Well,
Like-
let's talk about the conversation that's prevalent and not the question you asked. But what I'm saying is the logic that they say I have is they deem irrational. How could you root for a team that literally has no sense of winning? And not trying to be disrespectful to you're saying, play for a pick
I
in
agree.
2 years, bro.
Yeah.
I don't want no more picks, bro. I want to play to win and make the
Yeah.
playoffs now, not when I'm 35, not when I'm 33. I want to play to win a championship, or make a playoff appearance now. Try to create a championship level culture here. The way
All right.
Mike Brown learned in Golden State, and that what he's going to try to take and thrust and enter, and most importantly, engrave into everything that is the Sacramento Kings.
So before we take some calls, let's talk about the last guy on this list, which is Malik Monk. Thoughts on that, Ty? And then I'll go to Javi.
I mean, I think the most like attractive feature about Malik Monk is his age. I think the fact that he signed with LA on that was a 1-year deal kind of just goes to show like what he's truly capable of. I know he's able to unload the clip from behind the 3-point line, but I don't know. Malik Monk isn't anything special to me. Like, in my opinion, I would rather have Victor Oladipo than Malik Monk. I think that the age is the biggest attractive factor to him. And I think that for the most part, like, what does he really do? I think there's a reason why Charlotte's willing to let him walk even at that age, right? And I think there's a reason why he kind of went to an LA situation where he can somewhat prove himself. I think that he kind of did himself, I guess, a favor by going to LA and seeing that team kind of self-implode. But at the same time, like, okay, you put Malik Monk alongside De'Aaron Fox. I mean, like, what is he really going to do? I think that going into the draft that year, I think that was the year that we drafted, Harry Giles and Justin Jackson, and Malik Monk would have been available if we didn't trade back. I would have liked them then because two guys come out of college the same year, definitely had that chemistry there. But I think now at this point, like, I think he's going to demand more than the mid-level exception, in my opinion. I think that's just kind of what his market can dictate. So I don't know what you guys think.
Go ahead, Javi.
Maybe, from what I saw last year, and we have a different mindset of Malik Monk, I seen somebody playing for a contract that against the Kings, this man was shooting just lights out from the perimeter. But I definitely want to keep the tires on that Kentucky backcourt because when they were together, De'Aaron and him, they were out there serving. And I'm not saying I would pick Monk over Oladipo. My preference would be to Oladipo on the MLE. But if you can get Malik Monk at 1 or 2 for 16 or some of that ilk, I mean, why not? But again, I'm not sitting there putting him over an Oladipo per se in free agency. But, I mean, if De'Aaron says, hey, I'm signing off on this, like, this guy right here is the guy that makes me a better player and brings the best out of me, and he has a lot of NBA basketball in him that he can not just improve upon, but that he can display on our team. And with the usage that he can have, we can really be dynamic. Like, why not? I mean, DiVincenzo is a good, solid role player that can help us off the bench. But to sit there and act as he's going to plug and play as a starting shooting guard, like, I'm not saying he's not comparable to that, but we're trying to improve this basketball team in any which way. Like, we won 30 games this year. We're like the 30-win plateau member of the NBA. We're not going to win 40. We're not going to win 23. We're going to win 30 to 38. And I'm trying to get into the range of 41 and up. And I'm going to do anything and everything to get us into the plateau 40 plus. Not 40 or less, 41 and up. And then Malik Monk can help us. I mean, look how well he played for the Lakers last year. Maybe he just played lights out against our horrible defense when the Lakers played the Kings. But I'm pretty sure Malik Monk had a close to career year last year.
He shot 39.1% from 3. That's
There's
all.
your answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's
There's your
pretty good.
answer. I mean,
That's
has he ever shot
pretty
39%
good.
from 3 before in the perimeter and any other year that he played in the league?
No.
And look at how many attempts did he have? 200?
He had a lot of 10. I think he averaged 13.8 points a game.
No, I'm saying how many
So,
3-point attempts did he have in
oh.
the year?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure it was high.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like he shot 39% after shooting 53s. You know what I mean? I'm sure he had 200-plus attempts from the three-point line.
Right. I just put the link in the bio for you guys to join the conversation. The link's in the bio. Javi for GM. Okay. Javi, I see you, bro. What's up? If the one guy gets hurt, you're in the lottery. Don't trade picks unless you're going for the chip or making cap space. What you're saying is how you end up in the middle forever.
One guy gets hurt in the lottery. Don't trade picks unless you're going to. Okay, wait. So make this make sense. Let's listen to this. If one guy gets hurt, you're in the lottery. No, but if you have 4 guys, you don't go to the lottery. That's why you get a multitude of, as Monte would say, not just equity, but you get assets. So if you have a Debonis, a Oladipo, a Collins, a De'Aaron, and a Harrison, and a Murray, if one of them gets hurt, you'll still be okay because you have depth. You have a DiVincenzo, you have a Donovan Mitchell, you have a Mo Harkless, you have a Damian Jones, a Metsu, a Trey Lyles. You don't. When the Kings have any injury or have had any injury in the past 2-3 years, they fall off because they have no consistent depth to replenish that production. So don't say if one guy gets hurt. No. If you get a guy like a John Collins and a Oladipo, if Oladipo needs to take a break for a game or two, rest or his ankle's hurting, whatever it may be. You know how Oladipo's had injuries lagging in his last 3, 4, 5. Nintendo can spot start for him. John Collins needs a break for 2 games. You go, hey, Murray, it's your chance to step up. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, man. This show's about to get hot, man.
I see the Detroit hat.
Detroit hat. My boy Sean Murphy, man, from one of the best pods on YouTube. My brother, how you doing?
My boy Leo, what's poppin', dude? I had to hop in and see how you're feeling after the draft, dude. I mean, we talked about it beforehand. I told you I thought the Kings were gonna go with Keegan Murray. That was my feeling the entire time. You kind of had that feeling, and that was the direction that was a player that you liked. I mean, listen, man, I know a lot of the media and a lot of people were hating on the Kings, but like, could we talk about how this kind of makes sense and that this was like what a lot of beat writers are saying the entire time?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm not mad about the Keegan pick. Like I told you, like, it was Keegan, Shaden Sharp, and Ivy for me, right? Like when we did our show. It's the fact that they didn't, finesse you guys and like get like Jeremy Grant along with Keegan or Sadiq Bey along with Keegan. That's my problem. But when the leaks came out saying that the Pistons had intel, the Kings love Keegan, I'm not giving nothing up. So that's my problem is that Monte didn't play his cards right, and that we knew Detroit wanted Ivy. Like, that was a fact. But then they also knew that the Kings wanted Keegan, and that was a problem. So that's my issue. So to me, it's like, if you didn't know, would you have traded Grant and 5 for 4? Absolutely, right?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, before the draft, I mean,
right.
A lot of Pistons fans are kind of saying like, why aren't we talking and moving up? But I mean, I think that's the thing about having a guy like Troy Weaver. I think that's kind of the difference between having a guy like Monte McNair and having a guy like Troy Weaver kind of at the helm. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
I think with Troy Weaver, he's steadfast and confident, and there's a direction and a plan. And no matter who we walked out with, like he said, he was talking about how he was playing this draft in his head in a ton of different ways. I mean, you heard before the draft how the Pistons had plans to go after Ayton, how they reportedly liked Colin Sexton. At one point, they liked Jalen Brunson. The ultimate point of it is there was a multitude of options and there was a plan, So I think with the Kings, kind of like what you said there, they did have like a sense of who they wanted to go after.
Mm-hmm.
They have a sense that they want to go and try and win some basketball games, be more competitive now. But I think kind of like you said, there wasn't that vision of what can we do to maximize this pick, because it's clear
100%.
that New York had interest. It's clear that Detroit had interest. It's clear that
Indiana
people were
had
calling
interest
for not Keegan Murray but Jaden Ivey, and so with that, there were teams that you could have at least taken advantage of that with. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you in that sense of I wonder what they could have done. But
yeah, so this was a 4-player draft. We all knew that. The problem is that Keegan had dinner with Sabonis. Keegan had dinner with Fox. Like, these leaks just destroyed his hand. And to your point, yes, like he did not have a backup plan. And at that point, he was like, well, I'm just going to take my guy, which is fine. Like, I respect the process of, like, choosing your guy, which, again, I truly in my heart believe that Keegan was the better player for the Kings than Ivy. That's fine. My only issue is the way he played his cards is why I was frustrated. Not with Keegan, but with how he played his cards. And to your point, you guys had a great draft. In hindsight, right? Like, we still don't know in terms of they've never played a game, but it's looking pretty nice in Detroit right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I think too many people are, like, making the joke of that graphic that ESPN showed of people who were picked after the Sacramento Kings, like what their career's been like. So everyone's made the joke of, oh, well, if that's the list, then Jaden Ivey's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, like, I think Jaden Ivey's in a great situation. I think a lot of these prospects, you look at the situation they end up in, and I think that can ultimately look at, like, what their outlook looks like. And I mean, I do think with Keegan Murray, I do think the fit with him and Sabonis and Fox on the court, I do
phenomenal.
In my opinion, I think Keegan Murray's, like, right now, I think he's my sleeper favorite for Rookie of the Year, because if that team does work out well, Keegan Murray can come out and turn some heads. Very similar to kind of like what Scotty Barnes did in Toronto of like, oh wait, yeah, this guy is good. He was worth going that high, because that was a pick that turned some heads last year. I don't think he has the Scotty Barnes type of ceiling. I'm not saying he's that type of guy, but I do think, I do think that there at least is some value. So I'm just interested to see, because I'm curious, do you think, like, if the Kings don't make the playoffs this year, do you think it's like, all right, Monte McNair, another year, let's go, another draft, another offseason? Like, I just don't know. I just don't know what his leash is. So,
what do you think, Javi? Do you think if they don't make the playoffs, does he get fired?
I would say,
because I'm not buying the whole there's no playoff mandate. That's bullshit.
Yeah, like, that's absolute bullshit. That's cap.
There is a playoff mandate. Stop it.
I would say, my intuition would say yes, but again, I feel like they're trying to get rid of this misnomer that, like, all right, every 3 years we recycle coach, GM. But it's just, they're gonna look at McNair like, dog, the 30th of June is coming in like 2 days. It's time to make moves. Like, I don't want to hear this. We're playing for the pig. I'm tired of playing for the pig. I'm tired of playing. We've done this for like 4 straight years. We went through this with Vlade, and he drafted a bunch of bad players. We went through this with McNair, and honestly, he's drafted bad players. But like I said previously, I'm not taking a for sure thing over a player that has never proven anything. It's nothing against a young talent, but no disrespect to Detroit Pistons. They're playing and putting their chips into guys who've never done anything, and that's their logic. I'm not cut like that. I'm gonna put I know that what I've seen. I trust what I know, and I don't trust what I don't know.
I think to your credit, it's just a difference in, like, with Detroit, they have that established structure where they at least have a Cade Cunningham, and in addition, they have Troy Weaver and Dwayne Casey and John B. And they have so many development guys in the building that for them, they can take some swings since they've had some prospects work out. But to your point with the Kings, they're not in a position of luxury right now. There is a mandate to win some basketball games. With De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis and the players that they're paying right now, they're not in a position to say, hey, this is a relaxing year where we can just figure it out. Like, there's legitimate expectations especially with the trade that they made to go get Sabonis. That's a win now move. That's a move that signals, or at least that's the idea of the move is a win now move.
Yeah, and to your point too, Sean, about Keegan and about Ivy, like, also for people that are slamming the pick, let's not act like the Pistons weren't going to draft Keegan at 5. Because,
of course.
Because they were. So it's not a reach to be like, oh my God, they reached so hard. It's like, I mean, he would have gone either 5 or 6.
Keegan Murray was going to be a Detroit Piston without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean,
Make sure we set something clear, though, for your guests, Leo's, that, don't make this narrative as if, like, the Detroit Pistons are in a different space than the Kings, because they're not. You guys are.
Oh, they're not in the sense that, like, we have very much been mediocre. I just meant with the sense of
you guys are bad too. Like, they say we're in a win now. Like, understood we are, but I'm saying the Kings are in a position right now where I'm in a position as a Kings fan and as somebody that covers a team with Cowboy Kingdom Basketball Zone, is that we're trying to change the culture and establish a winning mindset here. Detroit
Yep.
is planning to draft young players and to continue to lose, to continue to get younger players to try to find a chip in a haystack. Which that's your logic. That's fine. We're tired of things like that. We're trying to compete and change mentality. With the Pistons are fine with having. We're just going to play for 30 wins, 25 wins, and try to get in the lottery again and drop. Well, we're tired of that over here. And I'm not saying the Pistons are as bad as the Kings, but you guys aren't like head and shoulders above where we're at. That's
I'm not saying we're this super championship Golden State Warriors dynasty. I'm just saying that we just have an established young core and a good thing building. And listen, I don't think we're going for the lottery this year. I think we're trying to at least make a push for a play-in game, or at least a play-in spot.
Okay, so that was my follow-up question to you, because before this draft, we still thought the Pistons would tank for like next year's pick, right? Which was like Victor and like the number 1 pick. So now has the perception changed?
Well, I think Detroit all along wanted to try and take a next step this year. The big part of last season, like especially the last half of last year, was trying to start and build an identity and start and try to improve and like win some more games. I mean, I think once you saw the guys get healthy and improve, I think you saw that. I mean, I think the one thing, tonight the Pistons made the trade and brought in Nerlens Noel, Malik Burks. You're going to see Detroit with their salary cap. They're going to go and add some veterans and try and at least get some depth and get some older players in this team.
Are you guys getting Miles Bridges?
No.
Okay.
No, we're Mitch Kupchak he said today that they're bringing him back.
Why wouldn't you guys try to pursue that? I heard that Detroit will offer him the max.
Well, I think the change in perception was it's sounding like Detroit had the draft scenario that they didn't think they were going to get. Like, it sounds like their ultimate dream was to end up with Duren and Ivy, and it sounds like Ayton was kind of like the plan, and if that didn't end up happening. So it's sounding like now with the picks that they got, that it's sounding like the shift is to surround them with some veterans, to give them some players that can come in now, contribute, but in addition give them like cap flexibility going into next offseason, because they have a team option on Noel and Burks next season as well. So like they can in theory come in, play this season, contribute, and then next year we can go and sign other people in free agency. So it sounds like they're just not in love with the class.
Yeah, the only thing I'm confused about, because remember you said, oh yeah, the Pistons have Cade Cunningham. Well, don't forget we got a guy over here named De'Aaron Fox who's no slouch.
I like Tarion Fox. I'm not trashing the Kings.
No. What I'm saying is we're trying to build town around him with, I said the Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray's, hopefully maybe John Collins, Oladipo, Sabonis. I see Cade Cunningham. You got a Sadiq Bey. You got rid of Grant. You got Ivy. Why not add a player like Bridges with the center and the interior players that you have? You said you added Nerlens Noel and Alex Burks. I mean, you're taking a flyer on Marvin Bagley. I don't see why Miles Bridges pair with Cade Cunningham and Ivy and
how much is Bagley coming back for, bro?
7.25, right? Is it 7.25? You guys gave a qualifying offer for?
He's a bum.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah,
that's a Hobby's favorite player.
Hey,
it won't be a ton. It'll be a team-friendly deal. It'll be a team-friendly deal.
Good luck to you with that nagging.
Oh, Sean knows.
Oh yeah.
He's a real ass Pistons man. Like he knows how bad Bagley is.
Listen, I will be a realist with you. I will tell you how atrocious some of the Pistons' decisions have been over the course of years. I also won't tell you I think a prospect is anything they're not. I think Marvin Bagley looked really nice because he was our only lob threat, and it just showed what it would look like for Cade just to have someone who could get above the rim. I think Marvin Bagley's atrocious on the defensive end. His rim protection is the equivalent to hot dog water. But so I think if a guy like Jalen Duren can come in and show that he can at least provide on that end as well. I mean, like, he's super young. That's the thing about him. And that's why, like, the argument for bringing in a guy like Ayton, like, Ayton is still young too. His ceiling is still high, but like, it would, with Duren, there wouldn't be the pressure for him to play day one, which I still don't think there is. But I agree, and I see your point of I do like the lineup of I am intrigued by Ivy, Cade, Bridges, Bay, and whoever you throw in at the 5. That's a pretty awesome lineup. But again, I wonder how Bridges develops and evolves, and I hope some of that production we saw last year wasn't just because it was a contract year.
Now, for someone on the outside looking in, Sean, if you had the option of selecting between Bruce Brown, Malik Monk, and Victor Oladipo to use the MLE on, and if you're the Kings, who's your 1, 2, and 3?
Man, let me tell you, as a Pistons fan, I love Bruce Brown and what he can bring to a team.
Yeah.
Like what he can bring to a team and affect winning. The guy's just an energy piece. Talk about like defensively, I feel like that would be a really great piece for the Kings. I would probably rank him first, and then second, I would probably go Malik Monk just from the potential of what he can bring from like a 6-man off the bench as far as his offensive, sparks. I mean, he's a guy that you don't want to rely to score every night, but he's a guy that on certain nights can certainly light it up and affect scoring in a positive way. So I personally, but again, Bruce Brown to me is just, defensively is a hound. I know that guy just wants to win basketball games and wants to do whatever it takes. And, he's improved in his game too. He's improved his shot a little bit. He's expanded his game. He had to take on, a bigger role in Brooklyn than expected. And he was one of their more consistent players, man. So Bruce Brown, heck of a player.
What's your list, Ty?
I'd probably have Victor Oladipo 1, Bruce Brown 2, and then Malik Monk 3. And then my thought process behind that is, and I think that I guess you can call this bias from being a Kings fan, but I know how much the Kings demand out of their role players. And I know that, I think that when you look at a guy like a Bruce Brown, he can flourish in a Brooklyn system where he's not necessarily the guy. I know he definitely stepped up within the last year, but I think in a Sacramento Kings jersey and us demanding potentially even a starting role out of Bruce Brown, I think we're setting him up for failure. And I think I'd make the same case for Malik Monk. I think him as well, kind of just being a guy that can come in, hit shots and things like that. I would definitely wouldn't be surprised if the Kings decided to try to start Malik Monk a few games here in Sacramento. So, yeah, I think Victor Oladipo, I would hope that, he can come in here and, kind of fill more of that veteran role, that veteran presence. I think that's kind of why I like him the most. But once again, right, he definitely has an injury history, and we don't know if he's going to be able to play big minutes that, even with Miami, he's still playing kind of a more limited role, just kind of like a fourth quarter type guy.
All right, Javi.
Yeah, I think,
what's your list? Go ahead, Sean.
Real quick, I'm really sorry. Just real quick, I think that's my one qualm with Victor Oladipo would solely be just the health. I think with Bruce and Malik, I think even though you don't know like how consistently you're getting it, I think you know at least generally what to expect, what you're getting. Whereas with Oladipo, you don't know 100%. How much of the league calendar he'll be available for.
100%.
For sure.
That would be my only thing.
So we're gonna go top 3, or we're gonna go just top 1?
Just out of those 3 guys, Bruce Brown, Oladipo, and Malik Monk.
Oh, Oladipo. It's not even.
Okay.
Like, by far, it's not even. The Leezy said Victor Oladipo didn't play out the season. Okay, but who's the best player of them 3? Like,
who are you taking though? Like, who are you paying?
Victor Oladipo. Like, Victor Oladipo. Who has the potential to take over a game? Victor Oladipo.
On a multi-year deal, knowing that.
Hold on a second. What game has Malik Monk or the dude from Brooklyn ever took over and said, "Hey, team, come on my back here. I'm finna do this, and you're gonna watch."
Yeah.
Hey, Demonis, remember us in Indiana and Oklahoma City? Hey, let's do this high pick and roll, and let's teach De'Aaron how to run this as the 2. Like, Malik Monk and Brown, good players. Solid NBA talent. Victor Oladipo can drop 40 on somebody's head. Like, let's go bring up the tape.
Can he now, though?
I mean, hey,
Yeah.
Bruce Brown at 23 and 26 against Boston in the playoffs.
Facts. Hey,
Like,
but
come on, man.
I don't know if I agree with
He
you.
played 20 games last season. Okay.
I
How many
just don't
games
know
has
if I
Bruce
agree
Brown
with
and Malik
you.
Monk ever dropped 40? Let me hear it.
Well,
I mean,
you're
you can laugh at
in
it
the
like it
way
ain't
you're
relevant.
in.
End of the day, them guys ain't never dropped more than 30 in a game at best.
Okay, so to be fair, I remember the Javi that always talks about availability being the best ability.
True,
And-
but you
and-
asked me
and-
3 players, and I told you who I prefer. I
So
want somebody
knowing,
who's going to change the game for the Kings, not somebody who's just going to make them be with a status quo.
so you're willing to take that risk, knowing that availability
Hey, man, scare
is the
money
best
don't make no
ability.
money. I'm here
Okay,
to make
there you
and
go.
create and
He's
take a
going
chance,
in.
homie.
Oh,
Man,
I'm.
you do the shows with Vince about the sports betting. Scare money don't make no money. I'm tired of playing for if he gets hurt, Aaron Fox can wake up tomorrow and roll his ankle, run out of bed. I don't care. I'm tired of playing for the
Okay.
Let's make sure we don't get a
Javi
player.
has spoken. Javi has spoken.
I want somebody who say, hey, Debanis, you're not having a bad shoot night. De'Aaron, you're kind of tired. Give me the ball, man. Give me the ball. Move out my way.
I like that.
I
Okay.
want confidence, dog. I'm tired of.
That's why Javi makes the big bucks, man.
Nah, relax.
Everybody's saying Javi. They say I wish Monte had Javi's attitude, and I was like, damn, Javi's out here just still on the show today, bro. Like, what the?
I'm just tired of being complacent with just doing what's the bare minimum. I'm tired of being.
Right.
We're just gonna do what the average team. No, I don't want to be. I'm trying to be great. I'm trying to be
Monk
complacent.
put up 41 points against the Nuggets, bro.
Okay, how many times did you do that? And how many times did Oladipo do that? Wait, hold on. Malik Monk dropped 41 points on April 10th. How many times has Victor Oladipo dropped 40 points in his 9 seasons? I'm sure he's done that 10 times. And I'm sure Victor Oladipo in his career over the 9 years is considered widely a all-star caliber player. And Malik Monk is a considered journeyman in this league. Whether we want to test that or not, are you giving Malik Monk ever a max contract or ever consider Malik Monk getting a max contract in the NBA? Hell no.
Yeah,
Hell no.
Yeah.
Victor
And like
Oladipo
once again to my point, like these guys
Go
in
ahead,
the Kings
Ty.
uniform, they're not going to be like what they are now. I think that's something that we can't undermine, right? Like Bruce Brown's doing well in Brooklyn. Malik Monk
why not?
definitely got more opportunity with the
But why
imploding
not?
Lakers team. Like in Sacramento,
But why not?
they're not going to be who they
But
should
why
be.
not?
Because we suck. And then I'm
Stop
talking about
thinking like that.
I'm talking about Malik
Stop
Monk and
thinking
Bruce
like
Brown
that.
here.
Stop
tell me
thinking like
Malik-
that.
You mean to
You're
tell me
thinking
Malik
like a
Monk?
loser, bro. Like Mike Brown said, embrace
No, I'm talking
winning.
about Malik Monk and Bruce Brown. I was just on your side about Victor Oladipo here. I'm talking about
And then
Malik
you
Monk and
come
Bruce
out
Brown. Like,
because
dude,
you suck. Stop thinking like that. Mike Brown is a
you mean
winner,
to
bro.
tell me? You mean to tell me here in Sacramento, like, oh my God, the Kings just got Bruce Brown. We going to the playoffs now. We just got Malik
No.
Monk going to the playoffs now.
No, but
Like,
I'm
bro,
saying,
I'm
stop
not even
thinking
confident in
about
saying that
losing.
either of those guys, they signed for Sacramento, they would average more than 10 points because
No,
that's just
I'm
what
not
the Kings
saying
do.
that. What I'm saying is stop thinking about losing and start embracing winning in every which way, dog. Like,
Hey, man. I appreciate you, Sean. He got the bad boy stun the zone. Appreciate you for coming on, Ty, as always,
Hey.
and Javi. Hey, man, this has been fun. We got to do it again. Man, we've been on for an hour and 30. And my COVID voice is gone, bro. I mean, shit. I'm still, I said this joke earlier. Ty asked me, what's your symptoms, Leo? I said, shortage of breath and headaches. These are all symptoms that Kings fans have and have had for 16 years. So I think we all have COVID right now, man. And not to make it into a joke, but my gosh, it's kicking my butt right now. But hey, I appreciate you guys so much. Final thoughts from you guys before we end this.
I want to ask, I think I have one closeout question, Leo, and I would love for Sean to be here just to kind of see his thought process on it as well from an unbiased perspective. Earlier, we talked about if hypothetically the Kings were able to get a guy like DeJounte Murray, right? And we kind of discussed like, would he be worth a 3 first-round picks in the future, especially considering that the Kings are constantly in the lottery, right? And those unprotected lottery picks can be very valuable. If we were to give up 3 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray or 2 first-round picks and Davion Mitchell for DeJounte Murray, what would he have to accomplish here in Sacramento for it to be worth it? And I think this is a good question because insert anybody. Kings trade for any guy, any perennial all-star or whatever. What would they have to accomplish here to make it 3 first-round picks worth it? Because some people may argue all the Kings got to do is make the playoffs. They've done something that no one else has been able to do in the last 16 years. What would they have to accomplish here in Sacramento to make those 3 first-round picks worth it to anybody?
Win a playoff series.
I agree with that. I think they have to win a playoff series at some point in their tenure. If they don't win a playoff series by the time their time in Sacramento, especially because listen, I think there's sound logic to saying, listen, we haven't had much luck in the draft of late. Let's stop. Let's make our own luck. Let's go get a star and a guy who can come in and help us win a playoff series. I think the first year, if he can help you get there, I think that's a great step. If you can be competitive, kind of like Minnesota this past year, where hopefully you don't make as many stupid mistakes as they did, and hopefully you don't have as many Karens charging the court. But I mean, I think I think in addition, I just think in all seriousness, like you said, it's like a great start to get there, but you want him to eventually close the deal too, right? You want to see them go in that right direction. So it would be a great start to get in the playoffs, but you got to win at least one playoff series without a doubt.
Well, there it is, y'all. Thank you guys so much. And on behalf of the entire Basketball Zone family, we thank you guys, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.